Hey, it's me, your ENT, your ear, nose, and throat doctor. Now, I can't say that there has been any scientifically proven medical benefit to it, but from a vibes perspective, I can say that a good thing to put in your ears is another episode of this podcast. Before we continue my first ever journey through the Harry Potter series, just a few quick announcements. Hello, we're back with another full episode. Oh my goodness, what fun. Announcements-wise, we've got live shows coming to a city near you if you live in one of these cities. So we've got a Potterless show coming to Kansas City, Missouri on August 18th, 2025, and then Providence, Rhode Island on September 13th, 2025. You can get tickets to these shows at potterlesspodcast.com/live. I will also be at Enchanticon August 15th through 17th in St. Louis, Missouri. I'll be doing stuff for Potterless. I'll be doing stuff for the Noose Olympian. The schedule drops in a couple of days at the time of recording this on June 6th. And I do know for a fact that the Potterless live show will be on Saturday. The TNO live show will be on Sunday, but I'll be doing stuff all 3 days. So if you want to see me having some goofy, nerdy times at Enchanticon, come on through. I think you can use promo code Scubes for 10% off at checkout. I'm not 100% positive though. But yes, in addition to that, I've got live shows for the Noose Olympian as well, but I can talk about that during the mid-roll break. The one thing that I do want to announce here before we get into this episode is that I do have a new limited series podcast out. If you like the Fast and the Furious movies, then you're going to like this. I had never seen them before making this podcast with my buddy Eric Hamilton Schneider, who you have heard on Potterless multiple times before. And he is a super fan of the Fast and the Furious. So we did a limited series podcast where we made one episode per movie where we would watch the movie together. We did the first 4 together in person, and then the other ones we did remotely. But we would watch one of the movies and then immediately get on the microphone to talk about all of our thoughts about the movie. And it was so much fun, and it was an absolute delight. And you can get all of these episodes right now, all at once, if you go to thelastandthecurio.us. So it's like The Last and the Curious, but thelastandthecurio.us. You can also go to patreon.com/Potterless and go to the shop because it's on the Patreon shop. Patreon.com/Potterless has been rebranded to the TNO Patreon, but there's still a bunch of Potterless stuff there. If you go to the shop portion, you'll see that just for $5, you can get every episode completely ad-free of The Last and the Curious. You also see that there are a couple of replays of live shows that had Potterless portions to them, one from a past Florida show, one from a very recent Des Moines show where we did a Fast and Furious Act 2. So if you want to get some Potterless live show, live stream replays, you can get those as well at that Patreon shop. Now, let's talk about this episode, though. What is this episode? This episode is audio from a previous LeakyCon. I mentioned that I will be at Enchanticon, which is the convention formerly known as LeakyCon. This is from Denver LeakyCon from 2022. It was in the fall of 2022, and this was a live show that I did with Stanislav Yanevski, the actor who played Viktor Krum in the Harry Potter films, and it was such a delight. It was so fun. We went through all of the info I could find about Durmstrang, Beauxbatons, and all of the other magical wizarding schools. It was the second time I got to interview him at this convention, so we had a little bit of chemistry going into it. Super fun, super good times. I think you will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get into this episode going through all of the non-Hogwarts wizarding schools with Stanislav Yanevski, aka Viktor Krum. LeakyCon, what's up? Welcome to Potterless Live. Make some noise! Woo! All right. At long last, the moment is here. So, by a show of hands and a show of making some noise, who's ever heard of the little podcast that I make called Potterless? All right. And who here is just like, that sounds like fun, so I showed up. All right, shout out to that sounds like fun, so I showed up, folks. Let's do it. So we're going to be having a lot of fun here today. We are going to be joined by a very special guest and talking about something that he's got some expertise in. We will be doing a deeper dive into the extraneous other Wizarding World schools that exist in the Harry Potter canon. We'll be seeing how many we can talk through in this amount of time, because there is certainly a lot of information about 2 of the other schools, and then the other ones get short paragraphs on Pottermore.com. So we will be going through some of those, but I'm not going to be doing it alone. I will be joined by our very special guest. You may know him as the actor who played Viktor Krum in the Harry Potter movies. Please give it up for Stan Yanevski. I don't know. We can keep talking until it begins to work.
Is it on?
There we go. All right, sweet. How's your LeakyCon been?
It has been fantastic. I've had a wonderful time. I'm very happy to see so many of you here. Late Sunday now.
Yeah.
It's been a great experience. I've had a lot of fun. I hope that you all had a great, shall we say, a full weekend. Some of you had a day or 2 days.
Right.
But yeah, it's been a great. Denver's been really good. People have been awesome. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, can confirm everyone's been really nice, which has been a whole lot of fun. Now, we are going to be talking about the extraneous visiting schools that do exist. Obviously, you played someone that was in Durmstrang. We will begin with Durmstrang. But before I get into all of the things that I've pulled from the Harry Potter wiki sites and all the hyperlinks and figuring out all where they got their sources from, what are your just general thoughts on Durmstrang? Did you enjoy the school? Do you feel a kinship to it more so than a Hogwarts house?
I think it's the best wizarding school of all. It's definitely got some powerful wizards that have come out from Durmstrang. Very free, dark arts, magic is all allowed. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Somewhere in the north.
Somewhere in the north, yes.
Very mystical as well.
Right, there's a lot of intrigue and all of that, but here's the information I was able to uncover about it. So it does say it's located in the far north of the European continent.
I mentioned that.
Very vague. And it does mention, it says the school is willing to accept international students from as far as Bulgaria, which when I was looking at a map, it's much farther south. From your experience being from Bulgaria yourself, what are the differences between Bulgaria, where you and your character are from, versus the far north, like Finland, Sweden area? It feels like those are very different countries.
Yes. Well, the further north you go, the more Vikings-like things become.
Okay.
People are tall, pale, blue eyes, blonde hair.
Sure.
The further south you go, people are more like me. Dark hair, dark eyes. Maybe tanned. I'm all tattooed, so I've sort of lost sense of my tan, but yeah, powerful, strong, good-looking people.
Yeah, just objectively the best people. So the wiki continues. It says, having existed since at least 1294, Durmstrang was one of the 3 schools that competed in the Tribesward tournament and was notorious for prominently featuring dark arts in its curriculum. Now here it also has what I think are some big liberties that they've taken, because it says, Durmstrang did not admit Muggleborns, but certain students might not necessarily have shared this prejudice. In 1994, Viktor Krum attended the Yule Ball with Hermione Granger, who was Muggle-born and would not have been admitted to Durmstrang. So apparently, you going on a dance with someone was enough to be like, they're not all bad at Durmstrang.
There is always this one odd one.
But no, I mean, Viktor Krum seemed like he was, I really, when I read the books, I really enjoyed him as the character. It seemed like he was like a nice guy. It was cool to see him talk with someone, not just Muggle-born.
Say talk?
He did a little bit more of it in the book. Yeah. Not as much scowling. But it felt like it was cool that he, this big popular guy, didn't think too highly of himself. He could still ask out the nerdy, quieter girl to the dance. And I thought that was nice.
He has taste.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what he's got. He's got taste. He's above things. So he does his own, he goes his own ways.
Right.
And Hermione was a good catch for the Yule Ball, You
Right.
must admit that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think he does go his own way. He swam in the lake just for exercise. Feels like, out of the box way to
show
do
off
it.
a little bit.
Yeah, a little show off. We just swim in a very public place in the school. Everyone's looking through the windows. Yeah. I can see it.
Having a bunch of, students running after him.
Yep. Yeah.
Must have felt nice.
Mm-hmm. Now that was definitely in the books. Were there lots of scenes of you just like getting chased by girls around? Was that stuff that they had you shoot for the film as well?
Yes, we did. Him stretching by the lake and then turning around, but then Hermione was present, so he was concentrated on her.
I had that focus.
Not that it didn't feel nice having some extra attention.
Yeah. Now, in the books, when Viktor Krum speaks, they write it in a way where it's like phonetically you're supposed to understand his accent. So instead of saying W's, it'll have the letter V. So it'll be like V have grounds larger than these through the winter. V have very little daylight. So V are not enjoying the winters. As someone who is actually from Bulgaria, when you read this, were you upset that they were just like, this is how they talk? V's abound.
No, this is not how we talk. But it's more like a stereotypical thing.
Right.
Maybe in some distant village you'll get someone talking like that, which is all right. Not everybody has well, I have a strange accent myself. I think it gave like a little spice to his character.
Yeah.
And I did try and bring that stuff onto the screen, which was fun. I wish he would have talked more.
Yeah.
So I could have played around with his accent.
Sure.
I mean, 2-3 sentences. Not much to play around with.
That's okay. I think you did a great job, and it's a shame what was left on the cutting room floor. And it should have been 2 movies anyway. So.
It definitely should have been 2 movies. Yeah.
Way too much material. So, in addition to this, it also says that the school was unplottable. So it had its concealed whereabouts from plain sight, so it was hard to say where it was, but it was generally thought of that it would be in the far north of Europe. It was founded during the Middle Ages by the great Bulgarian witch Nerida Volchanova. Does this sound like it would be a Bulgarian name at all? It feels very Russian.
No, it doesn't feel Russian. It feels Bulgarian.
Okay. Yeah, like
well, it would be Volchanova.
Okay.
Which translates like it has a woven root, the surname.
Okay.
Kind of, coming from the wolves.
Okay.
Yeah. It
right.
sounds like a Bulgarian surname.
All right. Well, she seems like a cool person from what I'd researched about her. She served as the first head of the school, and she seemed to be doing well, seemed to be popular, but she was succeeded after her mysterious death by Professor Harfang Munter. Is Harfang Munter a Bulgarian name?
Sounds more Austrian.
Okay. Well, then maybe he was from a different country that founded it. But he immediately succeeded her after her very mysterious death, which definitely sounds like he super murdered her. But he apparently established Durmstrang's reputation for emphasizing more aggressive magic, dark magic, dueling as
which
part
is
of the
very
curriculum.
cool.
Yeah, so for the guy who makes it more intense, I wouldn't be surprised if he murdered poor Nerida to take the position, but
it's a competition.
Yeah, So apparently, in 1294, the Triwizard Tournament was established as a friendly competition between Durmstrang, Hogwarts, and Beauxbatons. But in 1792, a cockatrice, which is a magical creature that resembles a rooster with a lizard's tail, a cockatrice went on a rampage and injured the heads of the schools. And the Triwizard Tournament was then suspended indefinitely, only restarting in 1994. Correct me if I'm wrong, but no kids died? That's not why they canceled it? It was because some people in charge got hurt by a chicken lizard? That's what stopped the tournament that was running for 500 years? And they're like, some people got attacked by a chicken lizard. Shut it down.
Did I mention what size that chicken was? Maybe it was a kangaroo size.
That's true. It doesn't say that it was rooster size. They just said that it was resembling a rooster with a lizard's tail. So maybe it was a huge monstrosity.
A huge hippogriff-sized chicken with a dragon tail.
I will say, a dragon-sized chicken does sound terrifying. And a new version of the would you rather fight 100 horse-sized ducks or, duck-sized horses kind of thing. Would you fight a dragon-sized rooster or 100 rooster-sized dragons?
Well, I would. I went fighting the Chinese fireball,
So yeah, you're fine. You're okay. I have to decide. You got it. So at some point after 1981, Igor Karkarov, after being acquitted as a Death Eater by betraying information to the ministry, so he did the classic leak the information, will get you off scot-free, he then rose to the position of headmaster of Durmstrang, and he became immensely unpopular in this position, and several students were removed from the school by their parents for his ruthlessness. He insisted on an environment ruled by fear and intimidation from his students, leading many to view him as egotistical and unprincipled. But this sounds like, was this the kind of environment in which Krum thrived? Because it felt like Krum did just fine under these circumstances.
Krum was fine. He was his favorite, so privileged. Yeah, Igor Karkarov does have that reputation of like a sinister sort of leader of a minions army.
Yeah.
I just had Despicable Me in my head. The little minions.
I'm now imagining minions doing all the cool
like
stuff.
Little Durmstrang minions. And then, he was a military-like leader, which we saw. unpopular though.
Yeah. Was the actor who played him a nice guy though?
Oh yeah, Pedja is a really, really nice guy. He was very funny on set, and he would, get into character and become this sinister, still very pleasant to work with person. He had this, I remember this little extension to his small finger, and he kept, doing his little magic things on everybody, going like,
I didn't know so that he had like a prosthetic to make the finger longer.
No, it was like those claw rings.
Okay.
And he loved that, and he would come next to my shoulder and be like, and I'm like, yeah.
That's funny. It's fun that he's like a very silly guy, and then it's like action. Ugh, now I'm angry at Karkarov.
Action, and then you just sense that thing moving. I'm like,
yeah, very different when this is like, ha ha ha, funny jokes to like,
like curse them all. You just use your wand, man.
yeah, but when you do it with the pinky, there's such an extra flourish to it,
It's like an extra bit of magic added on.
Yeah, because then it's like the intrigue of like, what's this guy doing with his pinky? Like it kind of misdirects you and like
it was
catches you
I
off
remember
guard.
it was like a dragon claw extension.
And was it just on
And
one
he
hand?
discovered, this little plaything, and then that went on forever.
And was it just on one finger? Did he have it
Just
both?
on one finger.
Just
yeah.
one.
Just one finger, and he would just constantly be like,
That's so fun. So during his time as the school administrator, some students copy Grindelwald's symbol onto their books, the Deathly Hallows logo, and they would put it on their books and their bags to try to impress others. But then they were taught a lesson. And this is a direct quote from the book where I think someone was asking about it and they said, followers of him were taught a lesson. Those students were taught a lesson by folks who lost family members to dark wizards. So they would, get angry. But the way that Harry Potter Wiki wrote this is to make it very clear what they mean by taught a lesson. They put taught a lesson in quotation marks, and then in parentheses it says, presumably in the form of retribution. So they have to explain what being taught a lesson means, which I think is fantastic. Now, I forgot this, but it said here that Durmstrang, during the Triwizard Tournament, they would go back into the boat to sleep. Is that something you ever did for the film, but then it got cut out? I completely forgot that Durmstrang would go back to the boat every night to sleep.
can you imagine the parties that went on? Well, we filmed none of that.
Okay.
But there was a scene where Viktor Krum did his show of training jumping from the ship.
Right.
Which we didn't see in the film. I wish we had filmed us going back and, doing our Durmstrang stuff. Sure. It would have been really cool.
When you were doing the dive thing, did that take like a lot of training? Were you well versed in diving, or did you have to like take lessons and all of that?
No, I went, I had coaching by the Olympics coach.
Cool.
For diving. So I learned how to dive from, the highest, what is it called? The highest platform.
Platform, yeah.
Yeah, which was really cool. Definitely not something I was very comfortable with to start with. But now I just, it's a skill, a good skill.
Yeah, good.
That
That's good to
I
have.
took from Harry Potter. So now I am like, watch me.
And
do
when they
that.
had you actually diving it, I'm assuming you were like was it like an indoor pool with like green screen
Oh
stuff
yes,
all
they
around?
built a special tank for the movie.
Okay. And they didn't use the scene?
Well, yeah, but they used all the diving stuff, the lake, everything
Okay.
was done in that tank.
Okay. So you were just doing it there. Was it, I don't know, was it like a big pool? Was it small? What was
I think
it?
it's the biggest set, the film set pool ever built.
Okay.
So a huge thing. And they covered it in mirrors.
Oh.
So you would literally lose sense of how big it is.
Oh, God. And then you have
there
to
was-
jump off a thing in a room of all that sounds extra
And then you have
challenging.
a divers team and yeah.
Wow. Intense stuff. Well, glad you still have that diving skill if you ever go, I don't know, cliff jumping or anything like that.
I don't know how far I would go up, but yeah.
At least platform height. So Karkarov full-heartedly supported Krum with tremendous amounts of bias, according to Harry Potter Wiki, their words, not mine, supported Krum with tremendous amount of bias, both as a judge towards the champions and as a headmaster to the students. And what's funny is on Harry Potter Wiki, they'll put like reference links when they justify things. And most times it'll like, you'll click and you'll see like, oh, this page in this book, or like, oh, they said this on Pottermore. There were 3 reference links to this one sentence about Karkarov being too nice to Krum, which felt excessive. They really want to prove like, no, it feels like this article was written by another Durmstrang student that was like, no, it wasn't fair. He was so biased against us.
Did you ever get a
Just
sense of
jealous.
bias there? Or do you think it was just Krum was the best and everyone else is just jealous?
Well, he was his favorite, and he's an international Quidditch superstar.
Right.
So he will get, a little bump here and there,
Yeah.
a little push, and privileged. But this is hard-earned respect.
Right.
It doesn't come for free.
That's true. Yeah. So I think it's just, Krum was up
I
to
mean,
the task.
for all the other students who were jealous at the time, well, you got to work harder, man.
So Karkarov then fled after Voldemort rose again. It was not known who took over Durmstrang after, or if the school's reputation improved or worsened due to someone else being in power. However, none of the students appeared to be too concerned by this, as Karkarov was unpopular among the school, especially when he had his students row the ship while he rested in the cabin during their arrival. So my question for you, do you think Krum also had to row the ship, or do you think he got enough special treatment where Karkarov was like, everybody row? Krum, you don't have to worry about it. My special boy.
I don't know why I have this picture of, that scene from Titanic. Yeah, maybe Krum was at the back of the ship just, enjoying the sun.
Or maybe he was the guy like beating the drum, like he was just instructing them. He
He
was like,
wouldn't
I'm
be-
helping, I promise.
No. He wouldn't be beating the drum. He'd be like catching some suntan and just...
Yeah,
Observing.
I'm saving myself for the tournament. I need to rest
He
up.
needs his full power and energy,
Yeah.
concentration on the Triwizard Tournament.
Sure, yeah. He knows he's going to be selected even before.
Can you imagine him rowing and, downstairs and...
Yeah, then his triceps are all sore for when he needs to fight the dragon. No, totally makes sense.
Surely they would use a bit of magic to...
That's the kind of thing that, that's always the question with manual labor. It's like, why does Filch have a job? Like, is it punishment because you can clear everything up with magic? Same kind of thing. They could certainly enchant the rowboats, but maybe this is Karkarov's way of teaching them discipline. Got it.
Military training.
Yes, it's very much, it's the Mr. Miyagi, like, you need to do the harder thing so that I can prove to you your worth, as opposed to, like, the easy way out is using the magic. Here at Durmstrang, we row boats ourselves, like I used to do back in the day. Now, more notes on Harfang Munter, who definitely murdered the first headmaster. Says about Harfang, quote, Harfang was the second headmaster. He took over the school shortly after Nerida Volchanova's mysterious death. He was a wizard of, quote, dubious allegiance or nefarious intent, having stressed the importance of dueling and all forms of martial magic, something that the school is reputed for, even today, having kept it as an important part of the curriculum. So martial magic, that's a whole new brand of martial arts, is you're getting magic into the
We
mix.
saw a bit of martial magic when the Durmstrangs entered for the first time.
Sure, yeah.
Hogwarts, the flips and
Capoeira. and all that
capoeira
kind of
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it was some really cool things.
The dragons coming out. Yeah, this
totally.
is it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, there's also a section on the Durmstrang wiki that says known students, and the known students are Gellert Grindelwald, Igor Karkarov, who is listed as possibly, since it's not confirmed that he actually went to the school, he's just a headmaster at the school, Viktor Krum, Karkarov's aide, who we talked before with Tolga about, and then the last person mentioned is Durmstrang Boy. It's just, I guess, someone who had enough screen time where he has his own Harry Potter Wikipedia page, but apparently the fifth most popular student at Durmstrang, Durmstrang Boy. It also...
Probably the one that wrote the article.
Yes, exactly. It's like grumble, 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 but I got to put myself in, but not make it too obvious.
Just get a little credit in here.
Now, something that I mentioned here, and I've been saying Durmstrang apparently incorrectly because it says the pronunciation of Durmstrang is Durmstrang, D-O-O-R-M Strang. Is that something you guys were coached on when you were in the film? Were they saying very particular, like, you have to say it this way, this is the word?
Well, there were so many accents amongst the Durmstrangs. I think there was no specific way of saying it.
Okay. Yeah.
It would be more like a Durmstrang, like a ooh.
Ooh, more of a ooh than a Okay. Now, Durmstrang, according to the etymological breakdown, seems to be a spoonerism for Sturm and Drang, which is a borrowed German expression meaning turmoil and to ferment. It derives from the name of a highly emotionally driven German artistic movement of the late 1700s, precursors to Romanticism. Sturm and Drang literally translates to as tempest and urge or charge and rush, but it was anglicized as storm and stress.
Strange. I had a different picture. Moon and shine. They produce their own drink. It's called rakia, which is moonshining.
Okay. Is it good?
Oh, it's very good. It's like brandy.
Oh, all right. Nice. So that's everything that we have about Durmstrang, but I have prepared some things about some of the other schools. We'll get through as many as we can before we end it with Q&A. Eventually, we'll have a microphone come out, so start thinking of some questions you want to ask Stan and I. But let's move on to the other school that was given some fair shine, and that was Beauxbatons. And this is...
Oh, we enjoyed them.
Yes. During filming, did you have a lot of crossover with the Beauxbatons actresses?
They did try and keep us apart. But yeah, we kept as close as possible.
Okay, yeah. It feels like that could have happened at the actual school itself. Would you kind of sneak off to each other's trailers?
It sort of happened naturally anyway. All these beautiful, there were dancers and ballerinas and, gymnasts. Really beautiful.
Yeah.
So we had to get some energy, like stimulation for our scenes.
I mean, it feels like you guys would get along because from what you've said in various interviews, it seems like all the other Durmstrang extras, a lot of the guys who did all this dancing, like they were various athletic feats in terms of things like you're saying, gymnasts and all of that. Beauxbatons obviously.
We had a special feature. We all looked the same, in a way. Same haircut, same clothing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And they all had the same robe, or they had the the robes, the hats.
Well, they were classified differently, red hair, blonde hair.
You were buzz cut.
We were all, pick any of them.
So they're a French school in the Pyrenees Mountains in the south of France. And it says, in terms of like some of the famous Beauxbatons students, it says, apart from the Flamels, so Nicolas Flamel and his wife also went to Beauxbatons, famous ex-students of Beauxbatons included Vincent Duc de Treffelpique, who escaped the terror by casting a concealment charm on his own neck and pretending that his head had already been cut off. So he was someone, I guess, around French Revolution time that faked his own beheading, which sounds awesome. I want the side story about this guy. It sounds pretty ridiculous.
Sounds wild.
Yeah. Now, there's another famous student named Luc Milfoil, and this is an infamous pastry maker. Of course, a pastry maker, since his last name is a type of pastry. Luc Milfoil, and you might notice that I had said infamous pastry maker, which is not something you hear often about pastry makers, but he was infamous because he was a known Muggle poisoner. He was a French wizard and a patissier who became famous for deliberately poisoning Muggles as a form of Muggle baiting. And I tried to do more research about this. This is like a one-sentence throwaway in a Pottermore article where it's like, yeah, by the way, there was this like Sweeney Todd, but for pastries. And then we're only going to write one sentence about him. I'm sorry, I need 1,200 pages about him yesterday. Come on. The demon pastry maker of the south of France? Let's go.
Yeah, that puts a different light on Beauxbatons.
Yeah, like, where did he learn it? Who was the potions teacher?
Girly and Butterfly. They had some characters in there.
Right? Yeah. Speaking of the butterflies, I'm assuming those were all CGI butterflies, but did they give you any sort of notes of, like, did they tell you, like, the Beauxbatons will come, they'll all go, butterflies will emit, and you need to be impressed? Like, was there directing action given towards
you?
you?
Well, we were behind the doors, technically.
Oh, you're right, you hadn't come
so
in
Hogwarts
yet.
students would get the instructions of butterflies, and, you'd be, like, stunned and, in love. We were just waiting for the drum sound outside, pumping up.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah, demon pastry maker, glossing over it. More about Beauxbatons. Apparently in the dining chamber, while they would eat, wood nymphs would serenade the students during meals. And at Christmas time, the hall was adorned with great glittering, magically non-melting ice sculptures. So my question for you is, if you were eating a nice French meal, do you think wood nymphs would make the meal better, or would you find it kind of annoying, you want to focus on the food?
I think we would just get our villas over to...
Oh, okay. Combat.
To make our meal...
Extra spicy. Okay.
Extra tasty.
Extra
More
taste.
enjoyable.
Now, apparently with Beauxbatons, the students and the staffs, we know that they were transported by the Beauxbatons carriages, which apparently in French is Le Carrosse des Beauxbatons, and it does say citation needed on the Wikipedia. They have to prove that that's the French words. But the carriages, which were light blue and pulled by a dozen winged horses, apparently that was against the rules. Apparently using this big showy form of transportation went against the statute of wizarding secrecy, which makes sense because I feel like it would be hard to conceal them. What I also have learned is that the horses are Abraxan horses. Does that mean anything to you? I know nothing about horse types.
I'm not very good with
Okay.
the different breeds.
Sure, but it's Abraxan, Abraxan. Is that a real type of horse? Is that a magical type of horse? Magic
like
horse.
a
Okay,
robotic.
thank you very much. That makes sense because what we've learned, or what I have learned from this wiki page, is that the Abraxan horses only drank single malt whiskey, which seems
Well,
like
no
an
wonder they were
expensive
all over
horse.
the place then.
Butting into each other. But yeah, not only do they only drink whiskey, but specifically it has to be single malt whiskey. These are very fancy horses, apparently. Very
I'm starting to
particular.
like Beauxbatons more now.
Yeah, is that your cup of tea? Whiskey? Is that a liquor of choice for you?
Not the whiskey, but they had some pastry killer, muggle. Now horses drinking whiskey. What else?
Yeah, they've got demon pastry makers. They've got alcoholic horses. It's a whole lot
Sounds like fun. They've got beautiful students.
Yeah, very different from the facade that they put out there. Now, Beauxbaton, when we get down to the breakdown of the word, it is apparently likely devised from the French bow and baton, which would literally translate to beautiful for bow and sticks for baton. So beautiful wands, sure. But apparently in French, if you were to translate wand, the more correct word is baguette, which I know is correct because I think that the reason the baguette bread has its name is because it's so long, and they're like, oh, they're kind of like a wand. We'll call it a baguette.
I've been to France many times. It's actually baguette magique.
Oh,
So,
is how you would
a
say
magic
magic
baguette,
wand.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it is baguette. When I first found out, I was like, isn't that a piece of bread? Like,
Yeah.
give me your bread. Let's fight with a baguette. What do you like to put on it? A bit of ham and cheese and...
It feels like a parody. Like if someone was writing like a French spoof, they'd be like, yeah, and their wands are baguettes, of course. But no, it's just the correct word. My favorite fun fact that I know about baguettes, because I was fortunate enough to do like a 6-month work rotation in France when I was an engineer, is that baguette traditionnel, like your classic baguette, is like a government protected situation where like there's a specific recipe and it only can have a certain amount of ingredients and you can't charge more than like whatever the official rate is. So when I lived there, it was like €1.05. Like a baguette was legally not allowed to be more expensive than that. And I just love that. I want to know, in order of like the French laws, like what number that was decided. Because if that was like the second thing where it's like, all right, first we're getting rid of the monarchy, right? Like, yeah, we got to get rid of it. Way too many beheadings. What's next? Bread can't cost more than $1. Thank you. Yes, you are correct. I just want to know what order, like how soon in the laws. But it's great. And they're really good and they're very tasty. So make sure if someone tries to charge you more, they're taking advantage of you being an American. Cite the law. Now, going on, if they were to use the more proper word for wand, baguette would have made sense. So there would have been beau baguette, which would have been great, or beau baguette magique, which would have been very wordy. But baton could be a reference to wand, but according to this apparently French expert that they've cited, it would be more likely translated to staff, like kind of like Moody's big staff. So really, it would be beautiful staff is the literal translation. And that's what I've got about Beauxbatons. We can now move on to the Russian school, which is called Koldovstorets. But the name of the school apparently is likely derived from the Russian words Koldovsto, and then they have the Cyrillic next to it. And it was misspelt when they changed the name, so they kind of like butchered the original word, but it roughly translates to witchcraft. And then the back half would come from Tvorets, which means creator. So together, it would basically kind of mean the creator of magic. That is the name behind the school, which is kind of cool. But anytime you think of the names of these schools, Hogwarts has nothing to do with magic. Like that name has nothing at all to do with magic. And then all the other magic schools are, Beautiful Wand, and then the Maker of Magic, and then it's Hogwarts. Like it's so different.
Doesn't this all make you want to get more Harry Potter movies, discovering all these different schools and?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it could be really cool. Like, especially just kind of even the way that I had organized this, where you could start it off. It could be kind of like when you see like the Marvel TV show on Disney Plus, What If, where it's kind of like standalone episodes, but then they're loosely tied together. You could have an episode where you just learn about Durmstrang, and then one about Beauxbatons.
Oh, you need a few episodes for Durmstrang.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You need 12 episodes, and it's set in the future so that you can reprise your role as Viktor Krum, who has now come back to be the headmaster, and everybody likes him. He's way better than Karkarov.
Popular all around the world, yeah.
Yeah, I think it could work really well. But yeah, I agree. Like, there's enough like out there where you could learn more that it would be fun to learn more about these worlds, and we'll continue to do so while we still have the time. Now, students from Koldovstorets played a version of Quidditch where instead of flying on brooms made out of trees, they flew on entire uprooted trees. So apparently they would uproot an entire tree and fly on it. And honestly, that sounds right up Viktor Krum's alley.
It's interesting.
Just like yank it up. Yep. Whee! This is my room now.
The Nimbus 2000 is the Nimbus 2022 now.
Right, yeah.
Wouldn't go plucking trees out the forest. And
I could just see them like ripping it out and then carving like Nimbus 5000 into the tree. Zoom. So now we're going to move on to Castelobruxo, which is the Brazilian school. Now, the name of this school is derived from the Portuguese words castelo, which means castle, and bruxo, which means wizard. And it literally means wizard castle. So the wizard school is named Wizard School. Very cool. Love that Hogwarts is called Wizard School. If it was called Wizard School, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, I don't know if it would have sold as many copies. Now, apparently the pronunciation of Castelobruxo is Castelobruxo. So I've been saying it wrong. I speak very little Portuguese. And by that, I know that sim, S-I-M, is yes. Because every now and then, Portuguese people will tweet about Potterless, and they'll say nice things, and then I'll just say, sim, with an exclamation point. Now, this pronunciation apparently conforms to the original Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. It says that Castelobruxo's castle was an imposing square edifice of a golden rock, and it was often compared to a temple. And the school was bewitched to appear like ruins to Muggles, so same kind of thing as Hogwarts, and that would also be protected by a authentic Brazilian mythical beast called the Caipora, which is like a fuzzy wilderness wood nymph that apparently has, legitimate like Brazilian roots as like a fairy tale. Sounded really interesting. It was implied to be at least as old as Hogwarts, over 1,000 years, due to the fact that both castles had been enchanted since their beginnings, and they did the same sort of ruin situation. Now, here's where we get into a very funny situation. While Castelobruxo's Pottermore entry implies that the institution is just as old as Hogwarts, the Portuguese colonization of Brazil only started in the 16th century. This suggests that the school may have been founded by indigenous peoples some 500 years before colonization, when the country was a vast region populated by thousands of tribes of different ethnicities. The Portuguese name might therefore be a byproduct of the Marquis of Pombal's 1758 ban of Brazilian indigenous languages. I feel like this is giving lots of credit to J.K. Rowling that she did not consider. I think she just messed up dates. However, I want to know about the school founded by the various indigenous tribes. That sounds really cool, right? Like,
sounds like full of history.
Right. Like that feels like that could be really interesting. How did these different tribes come together to found the school? And
imagine all the rituals going on.
yes. Yeah.
If they kept the traditional.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
And it could be like Durmstrang, where you have folks from all over from different countries. They're all bringing different culture to the mix. That could be the same here. And I do think it would be funny if they had a way better name for the school that had some sort of meaning behind it. And then the Portuguese came in and they were like, magic school. That's what we'll call it. And that's why the name sucks. Now, there's two other things, and then we'll move on to Q&A. First off, during Armando Dippett's tenure at Hogwarts, so one of the old Hogwarts headmasters, apparently during his tenure, he was visited by Benedita Dorado, who was the headmistress of Castelobruxo, and when Dippet complained about the antics of Peeves the poltergeist, Dorado offered to send him some of these Kaipora to show him, quote, what trouble really is, and get rid of Peeves. And thankfully, Dippet rejected this offer. He's like, I find Peeves annoying, but I do not want to expel him from the school. He's got too many fun gaffes that I like from time to time. Final note, which I totally forgot, Bill Weasley apparently had a pen pal who attended that school, or at least in the books it said he had a pen pal from a Brazilian school. He wanted Bill to participate in a student exchange program, but the Weasley family couldn't afford the trip, which is really sad, and it makes me confused that the school wouldn't have funded this. Like, Hogwarts has free tuition already, so I don't understand why they couldn't make something happen there. Now, when he rejected this offer, the pen pal from Brazil got really offended regardless, and he sent Bill a cursed hat which made his ears shrivel up, which feels completely unjustified. I'm sure Bill explained, like, I'm sorry my family doesn't have the funds to afford this.
Let's just...
That sounds terrifying. But that is all we have about the Brazilian magic school, and that's going to end this episode of Potterless for now, but we're going to move on to Q&A.
Whoa there, past Mike. We got to pump the brakes for a little bit. We got to take a quick breather here for Wingardium Leviosa. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for sticking around for not just this episode, but also for the Wingardium Leviosa section. So I've already talked about the Potterless live show stuff coming to you in Kansas City and St. Louis as part of Enchanticon in Providence, but I'm also doing some live shows for the Noose Olympian in the near future. That's my Percy Jackson podcast on June 29th. I'll be in Salt Lake City on August 14th. I'll be in St. Louis, Missouri, and September 28th, I'll be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Those are all in 2025 in case you're listening to this and you're thinking, no way, this is an old episode. Nope, we're still posting stuff, baby. So if you want to get tickets to those shows, I think I also have the link to those at potterlesspodcast.com/live, but you can also go to thenewsolympian.com/live or my personal website, Scubes, schub.es/tour, and you can get tickets for those shows. They're going to be super fun. I'm so stoked, and I'm also stoked for the half TNO, half Potterless shows that we've got going on. We've also been uploading a bunch of stuff to the Potterless YouTube channel recently. I have a production intern for the summer named Steven, who is part of the reason why we're able to get more of these audio episodes up, but Steven's been doing a bunch of video work as well, so I'm posting old tour vlogs. I put up 2 videos so far at the time of recording. We're posting a bunch of stuff from the 2022 shows, so that's been really fun. And then also, if you are a Google Podcasts, YouTube Music podcast listener, we've been actually updating that audio feed there so you can listen to the podcast there. I've mentioned the Patreon. It still does have all the Potterless stuff on it. If you go to patreon.com/Potterless, you can join the I Just Want the Potterless Stuff tier, and for $4 a month, you can get access to everything we ever posted on the Potterless Patreon. We had it running for 5 years as the Potterless Patreon. There were bonus episodes, bonus videos, and director's commentaries and notes and live streams and all this other stuff. So if you want to check that out, you can join and then watch all the stuff and then leave within a month. I don't care. Do whatever you want. I'm not your mom, but you can do that. You can also still get Potterless Podcast digital merch at potterlesspodcast.com/merch. You can get wallpapers and past live shows and ringtones and all sorts of goofy stuff. All right, I'm going to go. You're going to hear words from a few sponsors to make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of them will be read by me and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. If you live in not America, they might be in not English, but once those ads are complete, we'll continue this episode of Potterless, which is a Q&A, which is very fun.
So, question about Harry Potter and also your new podcast, The Newest Olympian. Mm-hmm. In your new podcast, you're talking a lot about like what godly parent instead of what Hogwarts house.
Sure.
Could you assign a godly parent to like maybe our main trio or maybe Viktor Krum, some of the characters that you talk about?
So I'm doing a podcast called The Noose Olympian about the Percy Jackson books, and the Percy Jackson books are all Greek god. So who would you say, if Viktor Krum was the child of a Greek god or goddess, who do you think his godly parent would be?
Probably Zeus.
Zeus, yeah. Okay, yeah. Little, feisty, old arrogant, I can see it. Main character vibes.
Quite powerful as well.
I could see Ares as well, the god of war,
Also,
Did some fighting in the mix. As far as, I guess I'll go with like the main trio. Harry, I would say with Harry, I'm inclined to pick Poseidon just because in the Percy Jackson books, the main character also has the Poseidon godly parent and a little bit of the sassiness there. And I think Harry and Percy have some similarities. I would say the no-brainer Hermione would be Athena, because all about wisdom.
Has to be.
Classic. And then Ron is an interesting one because he could go a lot of different directions. I could see Ron being Hermes, a little bit of like tricksiness, and he has some of his clever moments from time to time. I'm trying to think of anyone else though Ron likes to eat a lot of food. He's got that fast acting metabolism. Hermes, that could hold true. So those are my godly parents sorting. Thank you so much for your question.
Hi, I just want to say hi to Mike because I actually learned about LeakyCon from listening to Potterless.
Oh, hear that, LeakyCon? Keep inviting me. I'm doing a good job.
So my question was about, I had heard that there was actually a deleted scene in the Deathly Hallows where Krum comes back and kind of stirs up the love triangle between Krum, Hermione, and Ron. So did you have fun getting to kind of shoot that and kind of come back into the Potterverse after being away for a few
Oh yeah,
years?
that was good fun. The scene was Bill and Fleur's wedding, and Viktor Krum was meant to come and deliver, the information to Harry that the war is about to begin, and we know all that. But David Yates saw the chemistry that we had with Emma, and he was like, let's make a little extra story into this. So Viktor Krum, like I literally did when I came back, I went and I was like, Hermione comes with me. And he really liked the idea. He was like, all right, let's steal Hermione from Ron and, make him super jealous. So we had an extra dance. We were dancing right next to the Lovegoods, which was really good fun. They were doing those really interesting moves, and then we were very professional next to them.
And Krum in the books doesn't like the Lovegood, so there's another layer. He doesn't like the
but
necklace.
it was really interesting. The dad,
Xenophilix.
Yeah, Xenophilix. He was really into, he was really enjoying it. So we did this. It wasn't really a love triangle. I mean, we kicked Ron,
It was a love straight line and a dot on the side.
It was a statement by Krum. He came back. He said, "You may have her now, but this is my time, so you can wait." Took her back, and unfortunately, we didn't see that in the end.
I think it is a deleted scene on one of the movies. I think because I feel like I've seen a video of you doing some of the dancing
a little
before.
bit, yeah.
All right,
I
well,
saw a little bit of it too.
lost to time, but maybe
It was great, it was an extended scene. Victor was fighting the Dementors off, which would have been interesting.
Yeah, it's fun.
But yeah, unfortunately didn't make. I mean, it was a wedding in the middle of a very dark 7th film.
Right.
So they decided
Can't
to
have
spread
too
that.
much fun. We need to be sad.
Well, it was building up to the final battle, so
True.
having a wedding in the middle of that, a big feasty party, didn't quite.
Didn't fit the vibe.
Well, it fitted for us, but it didn't fit, for the final cut.
For sure.
I only found out in the cinema, by the way.
That's brutal. That should be illegal. They should have to send you a note that's like, we know you're looking forward to this, but
And I was with my friends and, waiting for the scene to come up. And then it never came up. And they were like, I was like, we did film.
oh yeah. Thank you for your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Too short for this mic. A similar kind of question.
You can probably there. Nice.
If there is a moment for Viktor Krum in Goblet of Fire that maybe didn't make it into the movie, something that was filmed, something in the book for each of you that would have given Viktor Krum something that he deserved, what would you put into Goblet of Fire, the movie?
Ooh, get to
I would put the entire Quidditch tournament.
Yeah.
The proper, him showing off his skills and, just seeing the Quidditch. We didn't really see any of the Quidditch. We saw the start and then the end.
Right. I was very surprised when I watched the movie and I was like, so much hype, so much hype. All right, here comes the Quidditch. And flash to white and it's over. And it felt disappointing. And it wasn't like something where like you filmed it and then they just didn't put it in. Like you knew
No.
going in.
It wasn't filmed at all.
No.
Unfortunately.
Well, no, I think that's a good
And I
choice.
think, it would have been nice to actually see a little more of that Quidditch atmosphere and, see why he is the world's best Quidditch seeker and, an international player
Yeah.
chased by all the girls. And
Yeah, even like
Yes, more scenes of people chasing after me. I think that's what we need.
I mean, we do see a little
little.
bit of him doing tricks on the broomstick.
Right.
But
not
far
playing.
from what I would have loved to have seen him.
I think if I was going to add something, one thing I really appreciated from the book was that you have this idea of who Krum is. You think, oh, he's this big hot shot. He's internationally famous. And then I thought what was a really cool reveal is that he is more than that. He is a nice person. He wants to take Hermione to the dance. He doesn't care that she's not popular or anything like that. And I think having more of that in the movie would have been cool, especially because
That library.
the
stuff,
library
him
scene. Yes. I would have definitely added that.
It would have been probably a little creepy as well. Just imagine, a stalker, behind the books, like, ooh, she's over there.
But I think especially the way that they had you portrayed as, you're intimidating and the buzz cut and the scowl and the like dramatic music. I think that would have been such a fun dichotomy of so intense, but he also like, oh, he has a softer side. Oh, Victor.
Well, we kind of see that side of him when, he sees Hermione for the first time coming
true.
down the stairs. He's like completely different, in a different mood. He's like, ooh. Yeah. And then he goes back to, he's puffing, showing off.
Can't let anyone see that I have emotions. Awesome. Thank you so much for your question.
Hi.
Hello.
My question is not Harry Potter related, but
Okay.
just general. If you were to create your dream concert, dead or alive, who's the headliner?
Ooh, dream concert. Who's going to be the band that you pick for the dream?
Maybe Manowar.
Who is this?
It's a heavy metal band.
Oh, okay. Where are they
Actually, I recently was told by my mom that they have remastered a few songs by Queen,
from? Oh,
like
interesting.
unreleased,
Yeah.
and they are, they will be releasing a new album. So Queen would be.
That could be really fun. Yeah, that's a good one. I think if I was going to pick the dream, I've never got the chance to see the Beastie Boys.
Bringing Freddie Mercury back.
Oh, bringing Freddie Mercury back it's a solid choice. I would pick the Beastie Boys. I never got to see them live, and once one of their members passed, they were just like, we're not performing anymore, we're done. So being able to see them, I think would have been a big one. Just loved their stuff growing up. Still do. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Hiya. We were talking a little bit about other countries and finding out about the magic. And I'm a big history nerd. Like, I would be the one who would stay awake in history of magic. And I was wondering, what would be your favorite country or more interested country to find out the etymology of history of magic, basically? Like, I've always been very interested about ancient Greece. I thought that'd be amazing for magic development. But, like, what about you guys?
Yeah.
I would go with ancient Egypt.
Ooh, good one,
That's
yeah.
fun.
Like the deep ancient Egypt, the pharaohs and
Yeah.
Bronze Age, 5000 BC kind of era.
That seems good. I think I would pick Finland because when I started Potterless, I had no idea that there would be like a big international listenership, and I had no idea that like Finland would be the 5th most popular country. Tiny little Finland was like always this like heavily listened to audience, and I just feel like I owe it to them to know more about their country and their culture. Eventually, I want to be able to visit. Just COVID made that hard, but I'm just intrigued, especially with Durmstrang potentially being in Finland or at least in that area. I think it would be cool. And then you get, some of the Norse mythology up in there, some of the like Viking kind of stuff. So I think that would be very interesting just because I want to know more about that country because they've clearly shown love to me. So I want to reciprocate. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your question. That was super fun.
What other YA novels are you considering for future podcasts when you finish the newer?
Got it. Otherwise series. So obviously the Percy Jackson books, which I'm currently doing. There's so many of those that I think I'm probably set for a while, which is good. My boss, me, loves the job security of it. So as far as I've definitely like been suggested lots of other YA stuff, but I don't really have one that's like leading the pack. The one that I like would consider if, I eventually do run out of stuff to do for Percy Jackson and I want to make another podcast like this, I think I would go slightly different than YA novels, but would go more towards a YA series and do Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just because I hadn't watched any of that. I'm very much a baby to anything in the manga, anime space. I've read and watched a little bit of stuff here and there, and I know people really like that fandom, and there's a lot of stuff. So I think that would be my pick, in 12 years when I run out of Percy Jackson stuff. I think that's the top choice for me. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
All right, so when we were just talking about the different schools and how they transported part of the school to Hogwarts, made me think about other fun, different magical transportation ways. So if each of you were a headmaster of your own school, what would your school's transportation be to get to Hogwarts?
All right, transportation method for your school.
If I was headmaster, we would master the wormhole transportation.
Ooh.
I think that would be very interesting to
Be very useful.
cosmic. And then here we are.
I think that's pretty cool. I think
And
that's
just, to see the journey inside the wormhole. And we'd just be able to travel anywhere in no time.
Yeah, I think that's a
That'd
really
be-
fun one. I'm trying to think. If I have to pick like an established magical thing that we already know about, I think thestrals are super cool. Just like flying on, bony ponies is a good time. Like really, really
Drunken.
just like, oh yeah, no, mine are, they are staying sober so that they fly straight. I think thestrals is like a cool vibe to have. If I was trying to do something like completely different though, and do it, I feel like if we all rode in on a giant tandem bicycle, like we're just all, everybody one seat after the other, I think that could be a really powerful entrance.
I just had an idea.
Okay.
We could fly in on flying carpets. That would be
That could work.
interesting.
Yeah, that would be a fun one. Awesome.
Like
Thanks.
distinguished, specially designed.
Yeah,
flying
of course,
carpets.
of course. Thank you for your question. They're illegal. Uh-oh.
Not in Durmstrang.
Not at Stan's School for Magic Folk.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is related to my costume.
Okay.
I know, Mike, you're not a pet person, but if you could have a magical pet, what would each of you choose?
Ooh, if you could have a magical pet, what would you choose?
I would choose. Dobby doesn't count as a pet, does he?
No. That's a whole messy debate we could get into for an hour. Yeah, we're gonna let's just say no.
I mean, a house elf, but that wouldn't be a pet. A niffler.
A niffler.
I would love a niffler. Just a little niffler sniffing around and.
I would have to think. I would definitely. I think one that would be cute. I know it's the Krupp, the like dog with the little forked tail. I think that is very cute, but I do worry about a dog being a little too high maintenance. I do appreciate Inspired by Effort as well. Newt Scamander's little bow truckle. I like that it's a plant, and it's also a pet, and it's also a friend, and it's also a cute accessory. So I think just the versatility of the bow truckle is really nice. And I also appreciate a pet that like gets really angry and can defend you. Like they can gouge out the eyes of people that have wronged their owner. So I'm very big on someone that's gonna step up for me, and in a pinch, like in addition to all these things, is also like a tiny little bodyguard. So yeah, I think bow truckle would be my selection. Thank you for your question.
This is a question from my friend. What do we think happened to Krum after like the entire series ended? Like, do we think Hermione invited him to her and Ron's wedding?
Talk about a love triangle.
Yeah. Or do we think he just disappeared off the face of the earth and never was seen again?
Okay. Do you think Hermione and Krum stayed in touch, stayed close enough to be at the wedding?
I don't see why not. I mean, we know that Ron was a huge Krum fan.
That's true, as he was before. Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want a superstar attend your wedding? Even though he's your future wife's first love. So I think they might invite him. And, the gentleman Krum is, he would attend happily. With a few beautiful Beauxbatons, maybe. Just to show Ron what he might be missing out on.
I could definitely see Hermione and Krum staying in touch, and I could definitely see it being one of those things where like Hermione keeps asking around, like, "Are you sure you're okay with this?" He's like, "I totally am," and then immediately he's like, "I'm not okay with this." Like he inside hates it, but he keeps saying like, "No, it's fine.
But
No,
then
it's fine."
he would get his autograph.
Yeah, he would make it happen. That would be
and
the
it would be a nice
stipulation.
conversation. Can you imagine, at the wedding, like, "Oh, do you remember back in the days that you were wearing those robes?"
Oh, throw him off. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
All right, so mine is kind of related from the other panel. I had asked about Cursed Child and all of that. But
Okay.
Harry's son, he's got a million names, okay?
Yes.
And how do you guys feel that Hagrid isn't one of them?
So his name is it's what is it?
Albus
Albus
Severus
Severus Potter?
But yeah, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I do think it's funny that of all the names that Harry could have chosen for his kid, given all the like lovely father figures, role models, etc., he picks the two people who manipulated him for multiple years. Like, oh yeah, this guy who withheld information from me, and this guy who hated me for most of his life, and then at the very end was like, all right, he's fine, I guess. His eyes, blah blah blah. So. I think it was a terrible decision. I agree with you. I feel like naming him like Remus Rubius Potter is the correct answer, or or at least some other like gets, you can get serious. Like there's so many other choices that don't involve Snape and Dumbledore.
It doesn't involve the guy that was trying to like get his mom for like his entire life.
Yeah, it's super weird. The other thing that I didn't notice, I think someone sent me like either a TikTok or Instagram video, is that like all of the names utilized for all of Harry and Ginny's kids are all Harry choices. Like no one's named after a Weasley, no one's named after anyone important in Ginny's life. It's just like all the names, first name, middle name, even the girl, we're naming her after my mom. Like everything is like me. And then Ginny's like, oh, I guess I'm here too. Like, not a fan of it. I don't know if you have any.
How many kids did they have?
They had three.
4 maybe to come?
Oh, well, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, Ginny, you can name the fourth kid.
Only if his middle name is Hagrid.
Right, yeah, I just... Yeah, jeez. Yeah, I agree with you. Poor decision on the naming front. Thank you for your question. Got time for just like I think we'll do these two and then we'll cut it.
If you guys had a favorite character, who would it be?
Okay, favorite character. Is it Krum? And if it is, I think you should pick a second one.
Hey, it is. Okay. my second favorite, when I get asked which character I would love to try and play, that would be Snape.
Ooh.
I love the energy and, the mystery that he carries throughout the entire films. And he's a really cool character to play.
Yeah. Complex.
Obviously, I think Alan Rickman was, Snape himself. And I don't think anyone could ever play a better version of Snape. But
you could do a different version of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Put a
I
different
can
spin.
do Nordic mountain.
Ooh,
type of
Snape's been working out. Ooh. I think for me, my answer to this is always Ginny. I genuinely find her to be like inspirational of where I try to fit in life, which is like knowing when to be funny, but knowing when to be serious. I feel like Ginny kind of toes that line of like, I'll be sentimental and emotional, or like, I'll make fun of Harry for being, a dunce. So I think like being able to toe that is something that I sometimes struggle with of, not everything is jokes and laughs. Like sometimes you gotta, be there for someone and just drop all the facade of humor. So that's my favorite answer. I like that she kind of knows that. Yeah. Thank you for your question. All right, last question, and then we'll go.
Hi, this question is for Stanislav. So this is my first LeakyCon, and when I saw your name on the guest list, I was like, I'm Googling and refreshing my memory with Viktor Krum.
Okay.
So I just want to bring up, I don't know if this was asked to you in previous events, but there was this certain article that says that it's kind of sad for Viktor Krum that in the Triwizard Cup, he's the only one that is not close to the one that he needs to save in the lake. Because he just met Hermione, right, in the school. But then the others are like the best friend for Harry and then the sister for the Beauxbatons. So what's your personal opinion on that? Is it kind of sad for him that it happened that Hermione was the chosen one and they just met,
Well, that just shows what kind of wonderful person Viktor Krum is. Hermione becoming his most precious person, to go and save, just proves that he wasn't playing around with her. There were feelings involved.
Yeah.
So he was very real.
Yeah.
Kind of sad that it wasn't his sister or his brother or someone else. But I think it has a unique energy and a unique feel that it was Hermione herself.
Yeah.
Because I've heard a lot of accusations against Krum, being a little bit older and Hermione being a bit younger and from Hogwarts and da. But this proves that he was real, towards her.
Yeah.
He wasn't mucking about. Yeah.
I kind of like that.
I was expecting that you would answer that. That just made me realize that Krum is really one of my biggest crush in the movie.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. I kind of I'm imagining a fan fiction where Krum, his whole life he was so dedicated to Quidditch and they were just training him and maybe it was his parents or his coach or his trainer, whoever it was, is you got to focus, no girls, you can only focus on this. And then he finally gets to meet Hermione and that's kind of his eye-opening, oh, there's other people. So maybe he had a very isolating life before.
Maybe she gave him a different feeling.
Exactly.
He discovered the feeling of love.
Yeah, it was love is silly, it's only a distraction. And then he meets Hermione. He's actually, love is great. And I'm very interested. Yeah. All right, we're gonna go write this whole story backstage. Thank you for the inspiration. But no, we're gonna go. Thank you all so much for coming out. Give it up for Stanislav for being an amazing guest.
Thank you.
This was super fun. If you were one of the folks that wasn't familiar with Potterless, you want to check it out, I did a lot of very fun episodes. I did book stuff, I did movie stuff, I did spin-off stuff. I've got stuff from LeakyCons with some of the other folks here. You can search for Potterless wherever you get your podcasts. We've got something going on the main stage here in a little bit that I will be here for as well, the kind of send-off thing. But speaking of send-offs, I'm going to send off this Potterless Live as the way that I always did with every single episode. The phrase that they definitely say all of the time in the books, that classic catchphrase, Wizard on! Thank you so much for coming out, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Potterless. This podcast was created, hosted, produced, edited by Mike Schubert, also with the production help of Stephen Hauser. I'm rushing really quickly because I got to do stuff for the baby. I have a baby now. Me and Kelly had a baby. It's really cool. It's fun, but it's a lot. So I'm going to go. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe to all the stuff, the YouTube, the Patreon, the podcast. Tell people about it. See me at the live shows. I really have to go, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, thank you for listening. All right, bye. Oh, until the next time, I say the Wizard World of Harry Potter, Wizard on!